Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to this podcast. This is David Valenzuela with I Wish. On today's show, I wish that I get to have a long conversation with Lynne. Lynne of Lynne, Goddess Lynne and Skin, correct? No, Goddess Lynne Body and
Goddess
Skin
Lynne Body and Skin.
in Southern California. So I'm super excited, Lynne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
I love it. And I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a while. So thank you for lining up the schedule and being flexible with us. And, we always make it happen. So tell us where your initial interest in aesthetics began.
Well, it actually goes way back to my preteen years. I had a fascination with cosmetics. And my bestie at the time and I would go to the local drugstore and we would look at every single lip gloss and every single eyeshadow. And we'd count our money and, buy one thing. And it was usually glitter. So I feel like my roots go really deep with aesthetics. And my more serious sort of interest came a few years later. I was in my 20s. I was between jobs, and I got a job at a local department store near where I was living in Pasadena. And I was in the cosmetic department and selling stuff in a department store. The department store was actually called Robinson's. Nobody remembers. Oh,
I remember.
Wasn't
it? Did it eventually become Robinson's May, or was it always? Yeah. It was okay. Robinson's May. I remember.
There were two separate stores, Robinson's and the May Company.
Oh.
And when those merged, they became Robinson May, and then eventually it became Macy's and blah blah blah. But anyway, I worked at Robinson's. Oh my goodness, what a hard job that was.
Retail.
But it was retail on my feet in pumps and hose every day. This was back, you got to remember, this was back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I think what it instilled in me and what it illuminated for me, though, was I really care about people and I'm really good at customer service. It doesn't matter what product I'm selling. I'm good at customer service. So that was kind of the way back beginnings. But then of course I went on and I did different things and I had a few different careers. And then eventually I got laid off again, as I seem to do. And I went to massage school and became a massage therapist. And I started working for a little day spa in West Los Angeles. Where they had massage and facials and whatnot. And that was where I really started watching estheticians working. And I really got the idea that this is where I'm going to shine. And so a few years later, I went to esthetician school in Southern California and became an esthetician and started in that same place starting off with my massage clients and building my book. And that was the beginning.
I love that. So let's talk about your department store experience for a moment, because this is back in the day. This is why I love having like a history conversation, because department stores were a thing for a long time. There was no internet, we weren't going online and buying our eye cream. Like there was we had to personally show up, go to the mall. Every department store had that smell, when you walked in, it smelled like new clothing. Was there a specific brand or counter that you worked with in cosmetics or did you move around in the store?
Interestingly, my main brand that I worked with was Germaine Monte. And that is a brand that I don't even know if they still exist. And at the time, they were considered kind of a niche brand. I was put on that counter because I was new and it wasn't very popular. And that's how they kind of started you off. They stuck you with all the weird little odds and ends. So I had
Yeah.
Germaine Monte, I had the Burial foot cream. I had, what else did I have? I think I had a nail polish line. So basically what they had hired me to do was dust shelves. They needed someone to attend to these lines. But what I did with that line was I studied everything. I read every scrap of paper that I could on that line, its ingredients, what it was good for, what kind of skin, and I sold it. And it did well. I mean, it built itself up. I made a living. And I really enjoyed those days when I wasn't crying over my feet. Um, but it was wonderful. And I didn't do this for a long time. I think I was there for 7 or 8 months. Um, but it was wonderful. And I really learned a lot about, kind of smiling, working with other people. Oh my gosh, working
Yeah.
with the other counter girls and
Mhm.
being able to manage that, super saturated feminine energy.
You know what? It was so the I got to work in the mall too when I was growing up, and I actually spent so I was when I was still in high school, I was working for a store called Miller's Outpost, which the Southern California
Oh,
people
yes, yes, yes.
will know what that was.
Yes.
It was a thing, but in my little town I was growing up, and there was really nothing else. I was actually having lunch with my parents yesterday, and I was explaining to my mom, like, there was really no other options for places to work. So you were the cool kid if you got to work at Miller's Outpost because it was the coolest store in Little Hemet where I grew up. But I spent 5.5 years with them. I spent a little tiny minute. It was called Express, or no, Structure back then, which then became Men's Express, which I think is now defunct. I don't know. There's so many things going defunct. And then I spent a year with the Gap. So all of that retail experience, Lynn, like understanding all the dynamics, all the people we work with, I was in management. I got promoted early. So managing a lot of different personalities and people and just the public, we underestimate the value of what that skill set is of managing, interacting with the public through holidays, like what that actually looks like, and people coming into the store at 8:55 when you close at 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve, like to
Yeah.
run around and do crisp, like that kind of stuff. So it teaches you a little resilience. You get a little grit on you, like, okay, all right, if I can do this, I can do just about anything. So our mutual friend Maxine Drake, I love that story where she's talking about being exposed to watching the estheticians. She's working the front desk and going, wait a minute, these ladies are killing it. Like, I need to get myself to
Mhm.
school to go do that. So it's always interesting to hear the exposure and where that actually came to be. So you started with massage, and then, that's obviously some wear and tear in the body. Then you decided to go to aesthetic school. So you built your first book of business by working with your massage clients and then starting to transition them into aesthetics.
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
it. I
And
love
they
it.
were they were so kind and so good. And some of these clients had never had a facial. And I just said, listen, please give me a chance. I'm starting out. I'd really appreciate it. And they did, and they loved it. And it just built from there.
I love it. I love so the having a little bit of exposure to the industry. I preach a lot on the podcast about when the new estheticians is graduating from school to go and work somewhere before they try to dive in and be solo. Like, you had some customer service experience working in retail, understanding how to interact with other women in the space, but just getting some experience before you just jump into I'm going to be solo now. And like, now where do I get my clients? And I think one of the things, Lynn, that I'm seeing over and over again repeating itself is that you asking your clients right then and there, like, I'm just starting out, I would love for you to come get a facial. That just even that interaction right there, the how not smooth flowing that conversation is, or being afraid to actually ask a client for a referral or something, it really is a very, very important skill. There's a lot of talk in the groups about how do I get more clients? And I had to cancel. You see, we're in the groups. You're always complimentary, and I love it. I'm like, I love Lynn. She's always giving us feedback, and I love it. But a common denominator is the repetitive. I don't know how to ask for money. I don't know how to ask for a referral. I don't know how to enforce my cancellation policy. People like canceling their credit cards before they can actually get the fee, and then there's just all kinds of crazy things and like how to interact with that world. And I'm like, well, it's really about your communication and your relationship with your client and what that actually looks like. And you won't have those clients that do that, but it is a skill that you learn as you go. So how long did you do that before you decided to go solo and open your own practice?
Well, I worked at that place for 15 years altogether,
Oh, wow.
including the 4 years where I was only a massage therapist and a
Mm,
body treatment specialist.
mm.
So 15 years altogether. And then in 2014 was when I opened my studio.
Good for you. I love that. Now, did you have, what brands were you carrying back then?
Back then at the place that I worked,
Yeah, yeah.
oh boy, that was something. So we had Murad, and
Uh,
this was the old fashioned Murad when it used to be only a professional line. And it was quite something. It was a great line. And we had Yonka.
oh, yeah.
And Yonka is such an interesting line. I had a lot of resistance to Yonka for a long time because it smells wonderful. And I thought, well,
Hmm.
that's just for old ladies who want to smell wonderful. And it turned out as I became an esthetician and as I studied more with them and took their training and read their manuals and stuff, it's a good little line. It's okay. I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah,
Not it's not the level of actives that a lot of us today consider necessary and effective,
yeah.
but it was great.
So the reason that I say that is that I worked for Aveda for the first 10 years of my career, and I remember when Murad launched, like that's like dating myself, like seriously, like whatever. I remember in the 90s when Murad came out. And the interesting thing about the industry is when I worked with Ray and Jane at Dermalogica, Murad was not that far away from our corporate office. I would actually drive by it from my hotel on my way to Dermalogica when we moved to the new building. And we would be having dinner. I'd be having dinner with Ray and Jane, and Howard would be in the same restaurant. Like they were in these sort of similar circles of just
Mm-hmm.
life, like where they lived. And I didn't know that the week that they sold Dermalogica, Unilever Prestige started this whole domain, that they actually also acquired Murad the next week.
Oh, I
So
didn't know
again,
that.
it's just such a small little industry, Lynn, and I don't know that Ray and Jane actually knew that either, that that was going to be part of their portfolio like a week later. They don't have to disclose that they were going to do that. But it was very interesting because I remember meeting Howard too, Dr. Murad, at a trade show, and there's probably 500 people in the room, and glycolic acid was like a new revolutionary alpha hydroxy acid, and people were like, yes, blow the face up. We've since learned, we know a little bit more about glycolic acid than we did, but I remember the brand kind of vacillated between professional, direct to consumer, beauty supply, QVC, like they were kind of all over the place. And Ray and Jane had a very focused, they knew what they were doing. And of course, those opportunities came up, but they never shifted from which is where my mindset comes in as far as like looking at the example of being focused and maintaining. There were times over the years where somebody was trying to recruit me to Murad, and it was when they were having we're going back into the professional space moment. But they never really, even today, they still kind of have their hands in all spaces. So I get it. It's a different life stage. So it's so funny. And I have some friends actually that used to work with me at Dermalogica that still work for Yonka today. So I know the story. And yes. Hi, everybody. This is David Valenzuela with I Wish Podcast with a friendly reminder to like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, give us a 5-star review if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify or iHeartRadio or one of the podcast platforms. It would mean the world to us. This episode has also been generously sponsored by Wish Skin Health. Wish is focused on the holistic treatment of acne without the need for potentially harmful prescription medication. If you are looking to level up your aesthetic practice with a sustainable, business-focused acne model, we would love to have you in the family as a certified Wish Pro. Visit trywish.com, click on the Pro tab for further details. Now back to the episode.
So I have to tell you a funny little quick story about Jane. So my boss at the time in the place where I worked knew Jane when she had her little tiny space, I want to say in Marina Del Rey.
Yeah, that's
Was
where
it
it was.
Marina or Playa? I can't remember. But anyway, they were like colleagues and they knew each other back at that time. And over the years, I always thought to myself, wow, it's so crazy that Jane went on to create what she did. And my boss ended up with a dumb little place on Westwood Boulevard, where I worked. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so grateful for her. I learned
Yes.
so much from my boss, and things weren't always great between us, but I learned so much from that experience. So, yeah,
I love it.
kind of
Where
crazy.
there's one degree of separation in the industry,
Yep.
and the exposure. So, I just go through life like I'm on a magic carpet ride and I'm like, woo, what's going on over here? Like, I didn't realize how fortunate I was back then living in the experience until you step out of it and you can go back and actually reflect upon it and go, wow, I had no idea that it was such a phenomenon. And I also understand the silos of the industry. There are huge brands in the space that I was never exposed to, that I didn't even know existed, that I'm now becoming aware of as a brand owner. And I'm like, they've been around since 2000. Like, it's so interesting because there's space for everybody in the industry. But I just feel very fortunate to have had that experience with even Horse, with Aveda way back in the day. Like, it was such a crazy experience to be introduced to the industry that way. Masonic temple, crystals in the ceiling. We're doing yoga and like,
Yep.
it's just, Lynn, I don't know that even, well, first of all, somebody would call HR and say, why are we all doing yoga together? This is weird. Why do I have to sit on the floor for 45 minutes? Like, this is not appropriate. I remember one of my colleagues was pregnant. She's like, Horse, I have to get up. I'm pregnant. I'm uncomfortable. I got to leave this room. But there was a period of time at Aveda where Horse would feel that it was about inspired action. So there was really no structure. So when you felt like coming to work, that's like when you came to work and like, I feel inspired to have this meeting today. And like, and people were bringing their dogs in the building and it was just early.
Very hippy dippy.
So I love the remembering back in the days of that, because obviously, the Estee Lauder acquiring Aveda, it needed to go into different hands for it to continue to be what it is today and like continue to grow and become a global brand. Like, it was just so interesting to watch that, because that was my first exposure to a true entrepreneur. My dad had always owned a business, so I understood, having a small business, but just seeing a true entrepreneur, like, and watch that grow into what it became, very interesting. And then, watching Dr. Murad and Jane and like all of these little brands growing up into phenomenons that have shaped the industry has been, very, very interesting. So you went into you opened your space in 2014. So you're having a decade, like this is your 10-year anniversary. I love that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
2024, it's Acne Awareness Month. That's great. I love that. So Lynn, tell me as a solo practitioner now with your own space, you're close to UCLA, correct? You're in Westwood?
I am. I'm just a couple of blocks from UCLA.
I love that. So give us an idea of a typical day for you, like now owning your own space for 10 years. Like, what does a typical day in the life of Lynn look like owning your own studio now?
Well, oh, that's so funny. Every day is different, but on my days that I'm going into the studio, I'm doing things at home like checking email, sending out, creating packages to mail to people. Yeah. And then I get onto the freeway and spend bunch of time there.
Yeah.
But once I get to the studio, I try to be there always about 30 minutes ahead of time to get everything situated. I see clients between noon and 6 on those work days.
Yeah.
And in that time, I usually see anywhere from 2 to 3 up to 5 clients, depending on what treatments I'm offering them.
Yeah.
And once I'm done, I get it all packed back up, make my notes, gather my paperwork, and head home to do laundry. So,
Love the laundry.
but during the workday, I'm very focused at work. I do not schedule downtime at work. I have friends who are like, "Hey, can you go to lunch?" It's like, I don't take a lunch.
Yeah.
It's just there's just not enough hours in the day, and I don't really want to be there endlessly. When I first
Right.
started, I was there from 10 to 7.
Ooh.
And one of my coaches at the time was very insistent on office hours. Like, you need to be there,
Ooh.
show
Mm.
up ready for work and be
Mm-hmm.
there, and use
Yeah.
that as an energetic way of telling the universe, I'm here to work. And I did
Mm-hmm.
that. I did that for probably 4 or 5 years. And it was true. It's very, very true. And I would bring my laptop and I would do a lot of the stuff that I do at home now. I would do in my studio, which actually isn't that bad of an idea,
Yeah.
especially in the summer, because I have air conditioning in my studio
Yeah.
and I do not. But I still don't want to do that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
but
No.
that was my routine for a long time, 5 days a week, that full 7 hours. When I shifted away from that was during the pandemic, because when I came back, everything changed. We were very careful about contact and so careful about sanitation. I actually allowed 45 minutes between every single client to
Just to let the air
basically
clear.
basically tear down my space, clean
Oh.
everything, and
Yeah.
put it back together again. And I still do allow a lot of time for cleaning, but not that much. Not that much anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't let people stay. I would give them their recommendations. You're either buying it or you're not. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Text me later.
Gotta go.
We didn't sit around and chat like we do now. Um, so yeah, so change that period of time that year really sort of changed the way I worked, and changed what my typical day looks like. Now I have days at home where I spend time either texting, FaceTiming, Zooming with clients, some of them here, some of them in other states, going over their skincare and what's going on with their skin and how their products are working, what products they need, and getting them set up with everything that they need.
Yes, I love that. So through the evolution of your business and your life and experience and understanding what makes you happy. Obviously, there's a little commuting, anyone in Southern California, if you're familiar, there's always going to be you just got to add an hour onto everything that you're going to do throughout the day because that's just the way of life and that's how you move around. And it's okay. Even out here yesterday, trying to go see my parents, the 10 was completely backed up.
Oh yeah.
Stop and go, stop and go. I know it's Father's Day. I get it. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers that are potentially the two guys that are in our industry that are estheticians that have kids. It's a moment. So when you decided to form a boundary for yourself, I'm going to see clients between this time and this time. Obviously, when you go in 11:30 noonish for a client, you're probably avoiding some of that extra sitting in traffic time. Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's a
why I
big
do
deal.
it.
You learn to navigate the situation. So now with your clients, Lynne, I know we know each other through Beauty Business Summit. When did you start focusing or see the need to start focusing on acne?
That's such a great question. I think, as an esthetician, of course, I've always treated clients with acne, but I think it was about I want to say around the end of 2015. So I had almost 2 years under my belt with my practice, with my solo practice. And that was when I started really seeking out some focused acne education.
Yeah.
And I did, take some courses and brought in some, specific acne protocols and acne products.
Yeah.
And wow, did that transform my business?
Yeah.
It really did. And I realized that I was on something. And I should also mention something else about my practice at the beginning. I did a lot of waxing at the beginning because
Mm.
that was something that I was known for at the place I worked before. And, a
Yeah.
lot of my clients followed me. And one of the things that I realized was I really wanted to get more into skincare. I really wanted to shift the balance of what I was doing from Brazilian waxing to more facials and more skincare. And when that light bulb kind of clicked on for me that acne treatment was something that was so much wanted and needed in my community, and I think everywhere, that was a turning point for me. And it really transformed my business and it really pushed me to the next level
Yes.
as far as what I was doing.
So of course, you guys, obviously, if you know anything about Wish, Wisdom Inspired Skin Health, we are an acne focused brand. So that's why Lynn and I know each other because we're in the acne space. But I think what I hear often, Lynn, is this is about education, right? It all comes down to education and you understanding that there's a need for you to get yourself more education around trying to treat a specific skin condition. Is that I was getting triggered about a week and a half ago about an esthetician posting something. Shall remain nameless. I was having a conversation with Maria, the money making esthetician. I was like, Maria, can you believe this? I'm so fired up. And she knows who I was talking about. And she's like, I can't believe. And it was basically against everything that we preach about estheticians being able to help people with acne in their treatment room and turning the focus back to dermatology. I understand there is a place for dermatology. Even dermatologists know that things are overprescribed for acne when people come in, and they're now the thing that I'm getting advertised is about microdosing Accutane, and I'm just like, it blows my mind because we saw the biggest population of acne clients had already tried a medical approach. Antibiotics, spironolactone, isotretinoin being the top of that would be the top things. I've taken this for 6 months, or I've been on antibiotics for a year, stop taking it, 3 to 4 months, acne starts coming back again. And what the dermatologists don't hear is what then we get exposed to. I've already tried all these things. They just don't go back to the doctor again. So I get into these heated discussions with dermatologists and I've learned how to diffuse the conversation. And I'm like, I'm not saying that anything you're doing is wrong. This is what you've been trained to do. I'm just telling you from our perspective who we see, what the client population is that actually comes in seeking an alternative. I've already done the drugs and I had either this sort of a side effect that was very negative and I wanted to stop taking them, or my acne came back. And it just becomes it's all about education. So when I see somebody post that, first of all, I'm like, David, why are you having such a reaction to this? Because it was basically somebody saying, you're just refer your clients to the dermatologist so they can get Accutane. And I'm like, as you can imagine, I was like, is that where we're at? And I just was, having the conversation with Steven and saying, you know what, this is why there's such an opportunity, because this person actually believes that. They believe that they don't have enough, that what they can offer in their treatment room is not as going to be as effective or valuable enough as what they can send to a doctor. And I'm like, come over here, come over here, come over here. It's all right. So, Lynn, being in aesthetics now for as long as you have been, what are you observing that is changing? Like, what are you seeing trend wise from when you started in aesthetics to now, 2024, having a decade of your own studio? What trends are you currently observing in the aesthetic space?
Oh my gosh. I think, one of the biggest things, so on the plus side, I love when I first started, when I was first licensed, we didn't have these Facebook groups. We didn't
Right.
have these groups of colleagues and professionals to bounce ideas off of. My aesthetic circle was so small. It was basically my boss and like two coworkers. And then the reps that would come in and, basically just, they taught us how to sell their stuff,
Yeah,
but they
of
didn't
course.
really teach us anything why.
Yeah.
So on the plus side, all of this support and encouragement and education, and sometimes it's even learning what not to do. Reading these posts about people who, you know, I'm not busy, can't sell my stuff, people are canceling, blah blah blah. All of this, I see this all as such a positive in our business because we're able to learn from the people who've come before us, and we're able to learn from other people's mistakes. So
Yes.
that's the positive of the
Hmm.
internet and our instant information um, situation that we
Yeah.
find ourselves in. But then you have Instagram and TikTok, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't. I just can't. I can't.
I know. I
It's
know.
so frustrating because I'll have people come in and they're like, oh, yeah, I tried the Egyptian, whatever it's called, or the Amazonian something or other, and apple cider vinegar, and scrubbing my face with shards of glass, and,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, now here we are today, needing to take a step back and, calm and re educate and develop that relationship. That's really what I'm doing. I'm developing a relationship where I'm the expert, you are my student. I'm going to share with you everything I know, and I'm going to be 100% honest with you about what I can do and what I can't do. And I'm
Yes.
going to tell you exactly what you need to do to make this relationship work and to make this protocol work. And people are very surprised when I start to put um, some of the responsibility back on them. I think there is a certain group of clients who would love to come in and lay down on my table and have me do some stuff. And then they get up and their skin is clear, like they never had a pimple in their life. And it's like, well, yes, that would be great. And guess what? If I were that
Hmm.
person, I'd probably have a bigger studio. But
Right.
but
Right.
it's all about education and relationship. And I what I see in our industry to that point is developing myself as a person who can create relationships and who can create trust and confidence with my clients. And I also see myself as being vulnerable and honest with them about what I can do and what I can't do. And that has been really freeing and illuminating and empowering for me.
Yes. I love it. I love it. The access to instant information from a professional on the professional
Standpoint where you're
standpoint,
not
just alone in your treatment room and you don't really have enough a referral point. We do have access to information from real time. I know there's a lot of people in the group, of course, in the United States, but even internationally, there's a lot of estheticians that participate in, Canada being, there's no regulation for aesthetics, right? So they're like looking for information, just looking for training. But I'll tell you some interesting things, Lynn, about social media, what's going on right now in 2024 that has been interesting to watch is, I've had interaction with some really big companies. One of them is called Tribe Dynamics back in the day. And there was something, it's called EMV in the industry, which stands for Earned Media Value. And they actually took this, he was one of the first companies to do this, but they would actually take a influencer, social media, something, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and they would place an EMV, earned media value, off of this person's post based off of how many followers they had, how much engagement they had, all of the things, right? So here we are now in 2024, and we've had several YouTubers, Instagrammers, Facebook back in the day that have all launched brands. And the investment that has come in and flooded the space based off of perception of the earned media value for these people is fallen flat. So the consumer is wise. Sephora's not dumb. If they're going to boot JLo's brand out of their store, there's a reason behind it. Obviously, I know there's a lot of conflicting things with Jennifer Lopez right now. It's probably not the best example, but there is the truth is coming to the surface about what social media really is, and the follower base maybe not being authentic. And so the money that's being thrown at these brands and these partnerships ending and these brands closing, it's bringing to the surface what's actually true. So, and I know that's kind of a theme. We could probably have a whole podcast about the universe and like what's going on in 2024 and all the evolution, but things are rising to the surface that are false premises and they're being exposed. So I'm seeing that as to tag on to what you said about being a positive for our industry, because it puts the attention back on the truth, which is you, the provider that is educated and understands how to navigate the skincare world effectively because you're educated to do it, and not just because of your followers and like what kind of noise can you make on social media to get another like or a click or a follow. You have a different, you're seeing clients, you're touching clients, like you're invested in getting their skin in optimum health. And that's not just through, sorcery on social media.
Right.
It's an avenue, and I get it, and it has its place. And I remember Jane we were walking through the canteen one day, and she's like, David, they have it so much easier, to market themselves and services, like it's free. And I was like, you're right. And correctly, if somebody knows how to effectively market themselves, then yes, it can be a huge tool. But it can also make people feel not so great about themselves or their businesses by trolling around and look at this other stuff that's not necessarily legitimate. So I get it. I get it. So let's talking about your services now. So you brought up a really good point that I didn't want to let that walk away. You made a decision that you wanted to transition your business from being primarily waxing to doing more facials and aesthetic services. What was your logic behind that transition?
When I made that decision and decided to start making that transition, what I was basing that on was numbers and clients. And I realized that, so Brazilian waxing, a very specialized skill. I'm very good at it. And I was happy to be good at it. But there were 30 other estheticians within a mile of me who were also good at it. And I really was tired of, oh, hey, so-and-so does it for $5 less. Can you match it? And it's like, no, I can't. No. And I'm not going to, because that's not the kind of business I'm interested in. I'm not interested in cranking people through, as fast as I can. And I realized that it's the kind of service where I was noticing that my clients would be consistent for a while, and then they'd not be consistent for a while, and then they'd be back, and then they'd go away again. It's like, yeah, it's not as intimate as that service actually is.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of service where people have a lot of loyalty. And I wanted people to have loyalty. And I also wanted to sell skincare products.
Yeah.
Because I realized that as a business, I can only do so much with my hands in a day. Even if I'm having an 8-hour day or a 9 or a 10-hour day, there's only so much I can do as one person. But when I get somebody started on a great skincare regimen and products that are working, and they're happy with their skin, and they like the products, and they feel good, and they do what they want them to do, that's the gold of this business.
Yes.
There's two things that are happening. There's me in the treatment room for an hour, or even an hour and a half once a month, or even every 3 weeks. But then there's my client at home at their bathroom sink twice a day, every day. And
Mm.
that's where the magic can happen. And that's where my education is so valuable, when I explain to them how this works. What's actually happening? Why are we rebuilding your barrier? What does it matter?
Mm.
Why
Mm.
are we, using sunscreen so much? What does it matter? Let me tell you why. And then you
Yes.
watch the magic in your own mirror.
Yes.
So that transition from waxing to more facials, and I still wax. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
still good at it, and I still have clients who want it and they're loyal to me and whatever. But the thing that I'm really passionate about is people loving the skin they're in, and feeling confident when they look in the mirror, and feeling beautiful, and feeling like they're putting their best face forward.
Yes.
That's what gets me up in the morning. So that's and as I started to realize this about myself, I just naturally and on purpose started putting my focus there.
It's really a huge, so there's a couple pearls of wisdom, you guys, when you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to it, that Lynn just said. One of the things is, from a business perspective, there's only so much you can do with waxing and retail associated with waxing. Um, and I get it. It's an easy way to make money, and you can significantly turn services quickly. And I understand the cash aspect of it. But the what Belinda said was really important about the loyalty, the client at the sink twice a day in their homes, using products that they're going to purchase from you over and over and over and over again, being part of your big business picture, is that is the reason why we have the industry that we have today. So you can't underestimate it. I saw, this is probably 4 or 5 months ago, Lynn. I was looking, someone was talking about retail in the group, and this esthetician popped on there and she said, I've been an esthetician for 30 years and I've never retailed anything. And I thought to myself, I feel sorry for this person right now, because she's missed basically her retirement, essentially. And no one has actually educated her about the business of aesthetics and what that actually looks like for the big picture. And she was proud. She was proud of that. And I thought, you know what? And then, of course, people chimed in underneath and we're talking about, that's how I pay my this and that and that. But I thought, you know what? That's a bold statement to make. And it was shocking to me, because this is why I love talking to you, and I love talking to people with experience that have been in the industry for a long time. We've been around long enough to see a lot of things come, a lot of things go, the trends, the stem cells, the growth factors. There's always something coming down the pipeline with ingredient magic and whatever's going on. Some of it's good, some of it's not. But we get to see things that work, that are time tested, and hold to be true 20 years into the game. And so one of the premises, when Stephen and I, business partner Stephen, we were having this conversation last year about starting this podcast, it was, how can we leave people with best practices, things to think about? Even if you just walk away from listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, you know what? I probably should start transitioning some of my waxing clients over to facials for XYZ, so I can have more longevity in my business above and beyond me just providing services. There's a retail component to it, which is a part of your bottom line, obviously, as a business owner. And it's a big deal. So I appreciate that little pearl of wisdom. So,
And
Lynn, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was just going to add one more little thing about retail
Yeah.
for the estheticians listening. I remember when I first started being absolutely terrified of selling retail. It felt so pushy. People are already spending a bunch of money. How can I ask them to spend more? What's wrong with what they already have? There's nothing that wrong with it. And it actually took me longer than it should have to get to the point where I realized what a service, how I was kind of shortchanging them by not selling them retail, and what a service it is to our clients to educate them on the proper products to use at home. And now it's not hard, it's not salesy. I don't feel like I'm pressuring them. I am upfront and honest with them. I say to my new clients when they come in, I say, look at these shelves. I sell products and I will sell them to you.
Mhm.
And I will not tell you what products to buy at Nordstrom or Target or CVS. I won't do it.
No,
First of
no.
all, I sell products.
Yeah,
Second of all, I don't know about all those products. What do I know about, whatever,
yeah,
whatever foofy brand is on the shelf? I don't know anything about those. What I
right.
know about is here in this room, I'm educated. I spend time. I constantly read. And this is what you're going to have your best results with. And they appreciate the honesty. And I tell them, I said, am I going to not see you if you, I know that there are some estheticians who don't see clients who aren't on their home care regimen. I'm not going to do that. Of course I'll see you,
Right,
but
right,
I'm also not going to help you buy other stuff.
right.
So don't ask
You're
me
gonna
to.
you're gonna meet the clients, which I know we've talked offline a little bit about some of the stories about the firing of the clients and like we're not gonna
Yeah.
treat you if you're not gonna do this. And my advice is, of course, always meet people where they're at. What if they're on an antibiotic? Okay, great. Let's educate them about, some alternatives, but we're not gonna shame them for making a decision to go do this or like whatever product line you're using. It's okay. We're just gonna educate. But to your point, absolutely, you're not going to talk to somebody about a product at CVS that you're not educated in. And you guys, when you're walking down the aisles, I know the lines are being blurred right now with Sephora and Ulta and Target and Walgreens and CVS and like all these brands are sort of like La Roche-Posay would be a good example of like having what was originally a professionally distributed product sitting on a end cap at Walgreens. The primary difference as I get deeper and deeper into cosmetic chemistry is that the products are formulated for shelf life to sit on the shelf for a very long period of time. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. Synthetic fragrance, synthetic colorants and things actually stabilize product. It can last longer on the shelf. So you see these companies, they spend more on packaging because they want to pop out because there's 1,000 products on the shelf. You see advertising and commercial with a trendy celebrity of the moment. All of these things go into the cost of that product that is relatively affordable in your head. That's the primary difference. And in the professional space, we're formulating for results specifically around acne. You can't create fluffy products around acne treatments. Like you either have to create results or you're not going to buy that product again. You're not going to use that product again. So I get it. I love that. And I appreciate the forwardness because I think one of the things also this goes back into, working in retail back in the day, the communication aspect of being very upfront with what your services cost and what someone can expect to spend in retail, specifically if they're going to be getting acne treatments or they want to treat their hyperpigmentation or whatever. It's going to take, first of all, you're going to do a consultation. You need to see the person. You can't do it over the phone. I know people call all the time. How long is it going to take to clear my acne? Okay, well, I don't know. I can tell you on average, but we need to see your face in person. It becomes part of the equation. So, Lynn, talking about the, lifestyle factors, how does the conversation go? So we get into this, we're not dietitians, we're not nutritionists, we're not physicians, but we can obviously influence our clients to some good choices to make. How do you incorporate the nutrition conversation with your clients if someone is struggling with acne or some other skin condition that is being exacerbated by their diet? How do you incorporate that conversation into your treatment?
When I first do a consultation with a new acne client, we go over nutrition, and I ask them, how often do you eat this and how often do you eat that, and so on and so forth. And I'm able to get sort of a picture of what their nutritional lifestyle is like. I ask them about their supplements. What are you taking? Do you take any at all? Uh, and what I usually tell them is, and I'll ask them, okay, backing up, I'll ask them, do you notice more acne when you eat certain foods. Oh, yeah, it always happens when I eat ice cream
Yeah.
or whatever, and
Yeah.
I'll make notes of this. And then we'll have a conversation and I'll say, well, based on what you've said, I would like to recommend that you skip ice cream for the next 2 months and let's see
Mm.
what happens.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, no, I haven't really ever noticed anything like that. I'll say, okay, well, I see a few things that might be triggers, but let's get you started on the program first, and then let's see what happens. I'm I'm not I maybe different from some estheticians. I'm not super fast to cut out whole food groups,
Yeah.
because and I have to be sensitive. Some people are struggling with food things anyway.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to do is trigger someone with like an eating disorder or something like that,
Yeah.
to go further. So I try to be pretty gentle about it. If they tell me something triggers, I'm going to tell them to eliminate it, obviously. But
Yes.
otherwise, I'll step back and I'll give it a couple of appointments. I usually see my people every 2 weeks, so I'll give it about a month, and we'll see what's happening as far as different foods. Obviously, some of the big triggers are dairy, of
Yeah.
course, and sugar, of
Mm.
course.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's more subtle than that. I've had a number of people in the last couple of years have problems with carrageenan, which is
Mm.
an additive in a lot of foods. It's an additive that makes foods feel yummy in your mouth. It's like,
Texture.
that feels really yum. I'm
Yeah.
gonna eat more of that.
Hmm.
Um, so I have, sometimes I have to dig deeper and look further and find out what brand of this or that are you eating. Um, I'm pretty clear about industrial oils like canola oil and vegetable oil. I recommend that they find alternatives. I'm pretty clear about iodized salt. I recommend that they find an alternative. But some of the other things, I kind of take a little more of a wait and see approach.
Yeah. Because sometimes, so it is when you're treating acne, it's multifactorial, and the new providers, Lynn, when they graduate from the course, are all excited, ooh, I got some knowledge, and they want to, wow, don't eat it, and I'm like, you guys, it's not true for everybody. These can be triggers, but it's not going to be true for everybody. So some people are okay eating peanuts, other people are going to have a reaction to it. Some people are okay with dairy, some people are not. The thing that keeps circling around is the I eat clean. I eat clean. And we're
Mhm.
like, what does that mean? And we have the vegan client or the vegetarian client that feels that their non-consumption of animal-based products should help them with their acne. And there might be hormones involved, or there might be something else in the equation that is still triggering their acne. I had a very long conversation with a consumer. She was in LA, and she's telling me all these things that she does right. I eat clean, I da, 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 and I still have acne. And I was like, well, I understand your thoughts about it, and there's some ethical things about the animals, and I understand all of those things, but that's probably not what's causing your acne. So there are probably some changes in your diet that you want to make around that, and just take the clean idea out of it, because it's different for everybody and it's going to be unique and specific to you. And I get it. I love it.
Clean eating is such a thing these days,
Subjective.
and it really is. And it's like, well, I eat clean. I don't roll my food in the dirt before I eat it. I'm eating clean. And I think in general, all of us, like I won't say all of us, 95% of us could eat more vegetables. We could eat more fresh foods. We
Hmm.
could do better about preparing our foods at home. But this is life. We have to understand that we are living in a modern world where we don't have 6 or 8 hours a day to prepare food. Not
Right.
most of us. Not most of
Right.
us. Some of us do.
Yeah.
And wow, huge huge blessings to those who do. That's a lovely thing to do for your family. But, for those of us who, really lean heavily on, the packaged salad and the frozen, whatnot, I think that there has to be some useful information for them too, for all of us too, to try to improve our diets and, at least look out for the biggies. Look out for the big things that are going to cause problems.
Yes. Switching out a dairy-based latte for an alternative, maybe an almond milk, maybe an oat milk, maybe something else that's just like just a thought process to like, oh, oh,
Mhm,
this is a trigger. I drink that every single day. My acne is not clearing. Okay, just one little thing, just make one little
mhm,
adjustment. I
yep,
I love it. It's true. And it is the dietary space is forever changing. Steven just completed, it's probably been a month and a half now. He's actually putting a module in the course um, on gut health. He completed a gut health course with Stanford. And it was very interesting because I was side listening to some of the presentations about what different physicians were saying, and some of them were conflicting each other. And I was like, this is where you get to a space where you have to make intelligent decisions for yourself, and your own body and your own microbiome, both topically and internally, is unique to you. And you know how you feel, and you know what's happening on your skin. So, with the guidance of an educated esthetician to help navigate this path, but it's one size fits one. I say it all the time, one size fits one. What's going to work for this person, the beautiful girl on Instagram with a beautiful Instagram page that's like, I cleared my acne drinking green juice. I'm like, you know what? It's probably not going to be true for everybody. And I'm glad that that worked for you. But somebody with moderate to severe acne, just drinking green juice is not going to clear. We know this, it's not going to clear their acne. So it's just a roundabout, educated way to take in information, do a little bit more research, read. There's a lot of information that I consume every day, whether it's in the dermatology world or, cosmetic chemistry world. Like, and I'm just putting up all the puzzle pieces together and I'm fascinated by it. But even when we were putting together the course, Lynn, out of the gate, artificial intelligence chat GBT had just been released. So I was like, ooh, this is exciting. Like, let's ask questions. And this is back a year ago now. So it came out in November. We launched the course BBS. So that was March 2023. Some of the responses were flat out backwards wrong. And I'm like, if I wasn't sitting here with 25 plus years experience and not knowing that information was completely backwards and wrong, I would be taking that as gospel because it's artificial intelligence. And I was referencing a American Academy of Dermatology, what was going on in JAMA, the NIH, pulling all the information together and making the best decision for what I felt was going to be appropriate for a wish practitioner and treating acne. And just some of the percentages would be off over here, and the age ranges would be off a little here. And this person would be recommending a keto diet based off of lowering the sugar, intake for somebody that was experiencing acne because of the insulin response. I'm like, there's little bits of truth in all of it. But if you just hooked onto one piece of information, which is what happens right now, and gets blasted out into social media land, that sunscreens are toxic or that they cause cancer, and like all this creates all this firestorm because they've extracted one piece of data out of one study. And we're just not in a society that's like willing to go and do the research. We just want to hear it. We want to take it for gospel and just like that is the truth. And I've had my mind blown multiple times over looking at conflicting information from physicians talking about the very same topic. So it's the experience. That's why I love the podcast. That's why I love talking to people like you with all the experience, because it adds value to the big picture of the industry, raising the bar. Like, listen, you guys, iodine foods they're going to exacerbate acne in certain clients. I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a client. She just finished the course. Her daughter has terrible acne. And she's like, oh my gosh, she's been consuming tons of sushi and her acne is flared and crazy. So that's a trigger for her. That's not going to be a trigger for everybody, but that's a trigger for her, something to look out for. We want to avoid that. I get it. Lynn, are there any DIY practices or at home treatments that you completely, that you are aware that your clients come in and they're like, oh, I saw this on TikTok. What is your opinion?
Oh boy. It's interesting. For whatever reason, I have been attracting new clients that are not particularly doing this. But a year ago and 2 years ago, it was that Amazonian clay mixed with apple cider vinegar. And I was
Yep.
like, oh my Lord. And they would come in and their skin was like, it was like crinkly paper laid on top of red and inflamed stuff. And I couldn't work on it. I mean, you couldn't
Yeah.
do anything with it.
Yeah.
And so this was, but luckily, I mean, I guess the thing that came out of it, not only for me, but also for the industry, is all of a sudden we started talking a lot more about barrier repair. And so, yeah, that was one of the worst. That was one of the worst ones, though. Lately, I haven't really had anybody. I haven't had any like blenderized vegetables on face or yogurt or honey in a long
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling good about that out in the world, like in our pool of consumers that are our potential clients. It seems like people are trying to get a little smarter, or sadly, they may be so far down that TikTok rabbit hole that they're not even coming to me.
Right.
And
Right.
it's one or the other, because I'm just not seeing it as much as I did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I love that. Well, the access to education is crazy. Everyone's, I always say you're 30 seconds away from making different life choices, change the trajectory of your life in 30 seconds with a Google search. Like
Yep.
literally, that can be that easy. You guys, Google is not a end all be all fact checking information. So just because you Google something about an ingredient or something and you read a statement on Google and you're like, oh no, I read this online and it's toxic. And I'm like, okay, the word just even, I start having a moment because, it's all of those things. So I get it. I appreciate it. And, I always say, the type of clients that you keep attracting, I'm like, okay, I need to look at myself in the mirror because what do I keep attracting over and over and over again? What is the lesson in this for me in this type of client that I keep attracting? And if they're all like this, then I got to look at myself and say, oh, I need to adjust something, which is we could get a whole nother podcast about that.
I want to be on that podcast.
Yes, Lynn, I gotta have you. Well, you know what? There's no shortage of things that we could talk about. We've already literally talked for an hour, and I have a couple more specific questions that I want to ask you, but I
Sure.
think it is important the mindset around your energy, around protecting your energy, around the energy of just what we actually get to do in this space, because it is unique in that the power of touch, the human interaction that you get to have with a client is unlike anything else that people are moving around in the world today. And sometimes this form of touch between an esthetician and a massage therapist is the only touch that this client actually receives. And we underestimate the power of that. It is very, very powerful in healing. I always say estheticians are healers. They don't know it, but that's why you actually come to this space, is that there's some part of you that has a healing therapeutic aspect of you that wants to help other people. And yes, we all have great products and we have great treatment protocols. We have all this great stuff, but just the human interaction and the touch aspect of it, the energy, it's underestimated. And yes, we'll totally do a whole podcast on that because I love it and I think it's amazing and it's true. So, Lynn, you've run a business now for a long time. Obviously, I know you're a fan of Mike McAllowitz. I that was so cute, and it was great to get to meet him at Florida. But what are you having your own business now for 10 years? What would you give an esthetician advice on some essential tips for continuing to run a profitable business? What tidbits would you give?
Oh boy. Um, do as I say, not as I do. No, I think so there's a few things. I think, and it changes throughout our careers. At When I first started my business in my studio, I was um I was running. I was running from a situation that I needed not to be in, business wise. And so I did a lot of things that I would not recommend, such as charging up every credit card I owned to build
Mm,
my to build my space,
yeah.
and buy product and do all that stuff. I felt like I had no choice. It was either that or not work. Um, and so I would say, be clear about your budgets, but also be open to doing it a different way. I'm the kind of person, I realize I'm going all over the place now.
It's all
So
right.
I'm the kind of person where it has to be right. I'm a Virgo. Hello, fellow Virgos. Um, it has to be right. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be perfectly right. What is the saying? Done is better than perfect or something. It's something like that.
Hmm.
So no, you don't have to have, you know, $50 sheet sets when you open your business.
Mm.
You don't have to have every single machine and gadget available on the market when you open your business. Start simple, start humble. People are coming to be with your hands, your experience, your knowledge. Yes, all the candles and lights and aromas and silky touching things are lovely, but people want you and they want what you can offer them. So don't get in over your head with stuff, would be my
Yes.
first bit of advice. And my second bit of advice, which I also, had to kind of grow into, was manage your money. And Mike Michalowicz, I love him so much.
Hmm.
And the books that he's written are so, so helpful. And I encourage everyone to dig into them. But manage your money. Don't get caught at tax time with a disaster.
Hmm.
Set the money aside.
Mm.
Um, but I don't have enough to live on. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can and you must. Because if you want to have a sustainable growing business, you need to start out as you intend to go on.
Yes.
So those are the things that I would say. And there's a lot of mindset stuff, about believing in yourself and hang out with people who are like-minded and don't read a bunch of negative stuff on Facebook. And I
Hmm.
and I'm very clear about that. I can't Every time someone says, I can't find clients, it's like, woof, that one's gone.
Right. Next.
I just can't read those anymore. I used to really enjoy chiming in on those and trying to give people advice, but they don't listen. So I'm not doing
We
that anymore.
we
Uh,
do, which is it's probably better for your sanity because
it's so
you're
much better.
I get to so I don't recommend this you guys because there's a lot of there's information coming at Wish from all different directions from different platforms, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm not getting on TikTok because I can't handle one more platform. The DMs that come in from the Wish Skin Health Facebook page or Wish Skin Health on Instagram, or people find me and they DM me directly, and I'll just scroll through and there's like 32 messages in there and it's like 9:30 and want to go to bed, but I'm like, oh my gosh, is there something really important in here that I want? So it's coming at you from all different angles. And you're like, no, you have to give yourself a certain amount of time to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to look at that. I'm going to engage with that. I'm going to best practice that. I'm going to move on from that. And then try to funnel the information into one. It's just interesting because,
You
when
know,
we put stuff out, it's just people want to just come at you in whatever way it is.
so we didn't talk about this, and I'm not going to start it up now, but I do have a background as a coach. I used to work for a personal growth seminar and training company.
Ooh,
And so I have a huge respect for coaches in the business. And I also know for myself personally,
yeah.
I'm hard to coach.
Mm,
I have a hard time letting people coach me. So when I find a coach that resonates with me, I put a lot of focus there. And I encourage people in aesthetics to find coaches that they respect, coaches that they resonate with. There are coaches for the business of aesthetics. There are coaches for business, period.
yes.
There are coaches for mindset stuff. There are coaches for in the treatment room stuff. Find a coach or coaches that you resonate with and allow yourself to take that in and let it kind of swirl around in your head and heart and determine what direction you go,
Hmm.
not every single person who's responding to a Facebook post.
Right.
And I do see things on Facebook in posts that are valuable. And when I see them, I will usually try to comment, give it a thumbs up, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's more rare. You really need to guard your mind, guard your heart, make sure that you're clear about what you want out of this career so that you are not going willy-nilly back and forth with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I
Because
wish
there's,
I wish I could be more clear than that. I'm having trouble putting this into words because it's so important that
mm,
that we there's a fine line between closing yourself off and being closed-minded and protecting yourself, protecting your integrity, protecting your sensitivity to everything that's out there right now.
mm. There's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. So, this is why I tell people don't watch the news, it's whatever. There's a whole, we don't go down the rabbit hole.
Yep,
It's not going to serve you in the big picture. There's a lot happening. So, Lynn, I'm going to ask you some questions. I want to let everybody know where they can find you.
you
So,
bet.
where can people find Goddess Lynn? No, wait, Goddess. Why do I always mess it up?
Goddess Lynne, body and
Body and
skin.
skin. It's not that hard, David.
That's where I am.com and on Facebook
Yes.
and on Instagram. It's simply Goddess Lynne.
Love it.
And
I love it. So you just
it's my name with an E, Lynne.
Lynne. I love that. Well, we will put in the show notes where people can find you, and we'll put the links down there as well. So if you guys are looking for a great esthetician to follow, I highly recommend following Lynn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Look her up. She's doing a phenomenal job, and we appreciate you, Lynn. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having this podcast. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for having an amazing company.
I love it. So hang out real quick.